Welcome back to Lights of Recovery. I'm your host, Jess. Today, joining me is my friend Madison, and I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. I actually met her at spin classes, and if you are fortunate enough to know me in real life, you know how obsessed with spin I am right now. So I can't wait to talk to her about her recovery journey, because my understanding is that it has a little bit to do with spin. Spoiler alert. Before we get started, I just want to first of all thank everybody for subscribing, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube. Apparently I have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I'm not sure what to do with that information. That to me is like, what? Me? Are you what? We're just hanging out. So anyway, enough about me and enough of the intro, because I hate this part. It's just like, nope, it's too much attention on me. Let's talk about Madison. So to begin, tell us everything. Tell us your entire life story.
No problem.
Let's talk about because I don't actually know. We've waited specifically so that we could have this conversation like authentically and organically for you guys. But I've been dying to know, what is your addiction story so that we can get that out of the way and talk about your recovery journey and also spin.
Yeah, I am, first of all, so honored to be your 10th episode. I feel like this is a major milestone.
Yeah, hell
that
yeah.
Not a lot of podcasts even make it this far. So to be invited on to celebrate that for you too, Jess, I think is really special. So thank you for what you're doing. I've listened to all the episodes. I'm a big fan. So being here with you is even more special.
You're one of the 1,000.
I am
no.
one of the ones. And incredible. I love that you are focused on the light on the other side of recovery, but you're so right that to get to that point in someone's journey, there's usually some hardships that they face, and that's the reality of being human. And I think the moments that cause us to break a little bit let the light in, and they really, build character and build like this cool, unique story that everybody's living. So I think we should celebrate that a little bit more too. And it's not
honestly
so negative. Yeah.
Like, sometimes it sucks out here, and it's hard just being a person sometimes. And I love that. I was just about to reference it as though you also haven't experienced it. But so at our spin classes, sometimes the instructors are so motivating. And something that I think it was Grace that said it earlier this week, like sometimes you like things are just going to be really hard, and that's just sort of where you're at. And you, if your best today looks different than your best tomorrow, that's okay. You're still doing your best,
100%. I get so much inspiration from these amazing instructors. It's actually insane. And I totally live by a lot of the words that they preach in the spin studio. It feels like a cult sometimes, but it is really like its own religion too. And it full of positivity, obviously.
It's very much like a fantastic community where, I don't know. I don't want to go too far into it. We need to stop it. Like, tell me the bad stuff first.
Okay. I'll talk a little bit about my story and how I got here to working at a spin studio that I absolutely adore, and filled with people that I think motivate me to keep going. So I started my journey, I guess, at the ripe age of 14 years old, where I had my first sip of alcohol. And I don't think this is uncommon, unfortunately, for a lot of people to start drinking at a young age. And it was just kind of normalized in my household, to be honest. I grew up in a really small town in Ohio. If you've been there, there isn't much to do other than hang out in people's basements and drink, or, have a bonfire. There's really, and watch sports. That's like the core of the Midwestern culture. So, and that was what I was seeing from my family too, right? It was pretty normal. And I think my parents they weren't strict in the way of like, if you wanted to try something, you could try it. So when I was 14, I, started exploring, and that I had an older sister too, that kind of, we all had a little bit of a mischievous era to us.
So it was
was all in good fun.
So it sounds like it wasn't that it was necessarily encouraged, but it wasn't discouraged either. It was just sort of like, yeah, whatever. We'd rather you do it here. And you had an older sibling, and it was just kind of like, this is probably fine. What
That's
could happen?
that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm grateful my parents were happy to let us explore and in the safety of their home too, where thank God nothing awful happened to me. And I had that, at least that environment. So looking back, that my parents put us in a situation that was the best it could be. They
Mm-hmm.
knew we were teenagers and we were going to try things, but at least it was at the house and it was like somewhat contained. So, that started pretty young. And then it kind of it stayed with me honestly throughout high school, and I ended up getting into some trouble when I was 15, 16 years old at a school function. I got in trouble for showing up like a little bit intoxicated at about 16 years old, and I experienced going to, we called it DH. It was a detention hall where I was, kind of humiliated in front of my entire school, getting in trouble in that way. And then, getting the dose of reality of what the judicial system does when you like break the law at a young age. So I was like
Dang.
terrified. And
So
my mom, yeah.
couple of questions.
Yeah.
So, was it just you at the time, or were your friends also like drunk and showed up, and it was just like you guys as a collective, and then it was like, oh, busted. Did they all get busted
Oh, it
too?
was it was all a group of us, a group of
Oh,
friends, snuck. It's the tale as old as time. It seems like it's a movie at this point, but you break into your friend's mom's liquor cabinet,
oh no.
have a sip. And at that point, you're the biggest lightweight. So one little
Right, you're a
sip does it
kid.
for
Yeah.
you. And it was at like a school dance. So yeah, a couple of my friends, we all get in trouble. We, are scared for sure. My mom, warns me, I'll never pick you up from a place like this again. Like, you need to make better decisions. And I didn't even spend more than maybe 30 minutes there, but it was enough to scare me. And then I also had to start alcohol classes like through the court system to get it erased off my record, which now, thank goodness, it is through volunteer work and like taking these courses. So being the only one in those courses too for alcohol, everyone that was around me in the court mandated like drug and alcohol sessions were there for like much much crazier things that I had done.
And
So
here you are, you're just kind of like, I'm just a kid, relatively good student. It's, I was just goofing off and it caught up to me. And I'm not hearing a lot of like, because this is sometimes how it goes, where it starts out in the beginning where you're having like a really rough environment and you start
mhm.
experimenting as escapism. And that's not always the case. It can be, certainly, but sometimes it's just because it's fun and it's normalized. And so like, and this is something that a lot of listeners may not know, or viewers, depending on where you're consuming this content. But there's actually like two main motivations to um, substance abuse, and one of them is the one that we know about, the really common one of like, yeah, you're trying to numb yourself or erase a feeling or whatever. And then sometimes it's the opposite. It's because you're sort of chasing this high, you're having fun, and you are constantly seeking that experience. You probably hear it more in terms of like harder drugs, like chasing the dragon is an expression that's used for, I think, heroin or opiates. But in that same context, it's not just people that are trying to bury their feelings. It's also like you're just having fun and kind of letting it get out of control, and it becomes a habit. And I don't want to speak for you because we haven't gotten too far in your story yet, but so far it's sounding like it's the latter, at least to start out with.
Yeah, you nailed it, Jess. It definitely was a having fun, chasing that, and then wanting to keep doing it with my friends because it was a social thing now, and it was becoming more of like, this is what our group does, and this is what this area of the school, like the popular kids are doing this type of stuff, and it's where the parties are. So that it started out like that. And then yes, I think later in my story now, we can jump ahead to I go to college in Ohio. A lot of the same types of people are going to school here. It's a lot of partying, definitely a college town. And this is when it starts. I don't have, the safety of my mom's house anymore. I'm more like experimenting with bigger parties, and I have my freedom of my own schedule. So this is where I start drinking, on a random Tuesday or skipping class, forming these bad habits. Looking back, it's stuff. I think a lot of this is not an uncommon experience. I think a lot of people feel this way in college or start to experiment in this way, but doing it consecutively over, for the period of 4 years where you're able to drink on your own and forming like bad habits, it's building up like negative debt in my life. And then it starts to become more of the second type of, you know, where now it's because I'm trying to cover up maybe some of my insecurities that I'm feeling. I'm a young adult. I'm still excelling. I'm getting good grades, but I'm feeling a sense of anxiety or like, you know, lacking confidence. And when I drink, those types of things are at the front of my mind. I'm a very
Right.
active person too. I have trouble like chilling. So when I have all this energy and know where to put it, drinking was a great way to suppress some of that.
Can I ask, do you have ADHD by chance?
I don't. I have generalized anxiety, I would
Oh,
say. Yeah.
I mean, it's the overlap, and I think we've talked about this in other shows, between any type of mental illness and substance use disorder or even substance abuse is like 50%. It's insane. And the reason I asked is because, like, certain brain types, I know for myself with ADHD, um, the way that alcohol affects the part of your brain that's affected by ADHD, it when it's normally like hyperactive and overactive and kind of bouncing all over the place, it slows it down to more of a normal. So a lot of times what can happen to people with ADHD, for example, is like alcohol kind of levels them out or makes things more clear in a way that they've not experienced before. And also ADHD, basically, honestly, we should rename it at this point, but it's kind of like my brain doesn't produce dopamine properly. And alcohol and drinking gives you those little dopamine boosts. So when your brain doesn't make the happy chemical, and then here's this thing that keeps giving it to you, you can fall into that trap. And I also have generalized anxiety disorder, Lexapro, yay. Um, it's it's similar. Like you have that constant bubbling under the surface. And then here's this thing that's so socially accepted, especially in that age group where you're in college. It's like everybody's doing it, literally everybody. And like we make fun of that statement, like everybody's doing it. If everybody jumps off a bridge, are you going to do it too? Yeah, if it looks fun, of course I am. I'm a dumb teenager. My brain's not even fully formed. Of course I'm going to. And I think we forget that, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, back to
You're
you.
so right. You're so right. I joined a sorority too, and I think that only just added
Sure, because
flames.
there's that socialization aspect,
Yeah.
and like there are stereotypes for a reason. Like sororities and fraternities have lots of parties, lots of gathering, and it's college and there's alcohol, and it's just sort of a cultural thing.
It became super normal, and
Right.
it was just the thing to do. At the same time, I was still getting great grades. I was still working 4 jobs or something crazy.
I
One of them was at a bar, of course. So like that made it a little bit easier too to like have the access to it or be working late hours there.
And then you
But
run into that trap of like,
yeah,
I'm getting great grades, I'm keeping my job, so there is no problem. You don't even consider whether or not your behavior is problematic. And then like you mentioned earlier, so you start running into debt or other issues, but it's not because I have a problem with alcohol. That's just a different thing. And then the shame spiral starts.
yeah, it was very much functioning at that at that level, like still making it work. I even co-founded a mental health organization at this time in college, looking back. And getting into therapy at this time too. So this was like a really weird culmination of a lot of things happening for me at once. And I think I was starting to like see in color a little bit more about what was happening and how it was negatively affecting me. But I was still in denial, honestly, too, at the same time, because I felt that this was culturally so accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And that couldn't be the reason I was having, trouble with anxiety or self-confidence or things like that. It just didn't occur to me. I don't like you said, my brain was not fully developed.
Right. Right. And you just assume like these things, you don't even consider the possibility that those things could even be remotely connected. And it doesn't mean like, well, I was having anxiety and issues only because of alcohol either. It's not necessarily that extreme, but it sounds like you didn't even consider the possibility of any connection at all.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So college goes by, I graduate with a double major and killed it. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Nailed it.
So then I make the decision to move down to Florida where my family's located. And that's how I ended up here in Tampa, St. Pete area. And this is when, I get my first big girl job. I'm making money for the first time. That's not like minimum wage.
You're not
I'm happy.
scraping by and like,
Yeah,
rationing your ramen and yeah.
I have more freedom. And this is in 2018. I started to carry over some of the same habits that I had in college, to be honest. And in my work environment, I work in the sports industry, and it's interesting the connection that alcohol and sports have to each other, where drinking was now another part of the culture.
Mm.
I'm now finding myself in another situation. It's being in the Midwest, it's being in a college town and being in a sorority, and now it's working in the sports industry where alcohol is always around. It's just a part of that experience to an extent, and the people that work in that type of job are very liberal with their alcohol usage, to
Right.
be
Well,
quite
I mean, if
frank.
you think about it, like, the term sports bar, it's like it's right there. Like how many times do you go out to eat at a pub or a sports bar and like turn on the game? Like that's just the two go very hand in hand culturally. And in
Yeah.
lots of places, not just here in the States, like overseas, it's just a thing. It's just another thing.
It is. It is. So,
So go on. This sounds like you're
yeah.
really being set up for such success.
I never got to the point where I felt like I was so far into addiction that it was debilitating. I never missed work. I never got to that point, but it was just becoming such a habit that I was gaining weight. If you don't know, alcohol is primarily carbs. I wasn't taking care of myself to feel my best. And if anything, it was more of a mild addiction than anything. But since it had gone on for so long in my life, at this point, I was just tired of not feeling good. And it was starting to compound. I gained a lot of weight, to be honest. I gained like 70 pounds after college.
Dang.
So now I've since lost all that. And around the time of like 2020 is really when I got really serious about my health journey. And this is where things kind of like the wheels started turning for me of like, I can make a change in my life and I need to be active in my life in order to do that and not passive and let things pass me by. If I want to make change, it's possible, it just takes time. So fitness is where that started for me.
So were you previously into sports yourself or like doing fitness things and you were just like, these goals are conflicting? Or was there something that inspired you around that time that you were like, you know what? Fuck yeah. I'm, you know, I'm going to start this journey.
I think I saw a picture of myself at my best friend's wedding, and I hated the way I looked. Absolutely hated it. And I had always been pretty active. Like to your point, I played sports my entire life. And getting out of college, there was a lot less activity. I wasn't walking around a campus anymore. I wasn't, playing intramurals or on a club team. I had like given up a lot of my love for sports at that point, and I saw a picture of myself and was like, "Oh no, this needs to change." And was reading a book at the time. It was like, "You Are a Badass at Your Own Life," or one of those books. And
Oh, I have that. You Are a Badass, I think, and it's like got a yellow cover, I think.
yes,
Yes, I haven't read it, but it's in my enormous TBR. So I'll link it below if anybody else wants to grab it. Let me write that
that'd
down.
be great. I can't remember the exact title. I was reading that though, and I have always been really drawn to the self-help type of literature, especially at this time. I think I was looking for like answers of like how to fix this or like how to get started. And in that book, it mentions like the easiest way to learn a new skill is to find an expert. So in my
Hmm.
head, I was like, I need to find a trainer or a coach or somebody to help me like through this process because I don't know where to start and I'm overwhelmed. I'm making the first step. And honestly, the hardest part about change is when we think the first step is too big for us to take on our own. So when you
Hmm.
can find somebody that can help guide you, it makes it so much more digestible. So that's what
That's
I wanted to do.
that's so important. I just want to pause on that because like what you said was so profound is everybody talks about like, just take that first step or, just get started. And so often it's like, okay, but do what? Like flip a switch? What am I supposed to do? The answer isn't always like, okay, well, like get help today. You see that constantly, especially in, recovery, but like how? And I love that idea, that breakdown of like, okay, well, find an expert. If you're overwhelmed, find somebody that's walked the path that you want to like walk or that has achieved what you are looking to work on. And I think that's why people recommend support groups and stuff for, sobriety and stuff too, because they know they've been there, they can help. And so it sounds like, yeah, you found a trainer that could guide you and explain like, okay, so you're here, and in order to get here, here are the steps. Because part of it is you don't know what you don't know. And I know this too from like coming from a zero sports background and getting to a point where like I wasn't happy with my body, not just how I looked, but how I felt. And and I'm like, okay, well, I'm like in my 30s at this point, and I need to start making conscious choices now at this phase of my life, but I don't know what I'm doing, so it's hard to just do it on your own. And then you try to research it, and then there's like so many conflicting things out there. It's like, well, you shouldn't eat carbs are bad for you, and like you shouldn't have sugar is bad, and like, oh, did you know carrots have a bunch of sugar in those? Don't eat those either. And it's just like, if you start looking at it, it's like, well, I guess I'll just have water and nothing, that's
Yeah.
which is also bad. Don't do that. um
And I love
any
carbs for the record. They're my
Yes,
favorite.
we love carbs. We love carbs.
You're so right though. And finding that at that time in my life was exactly what I needed. Having her guide me through that, I was able to lose 70 pounds. I was still drinking during this time too. And
Wow.
I want to underscore this because I lost the weight, but I definitely, there's healthier ways to do it because when you're skipping meals or things like that to account for alcohol in your macros, that's not good.
Correct. Right. Like that is that is something that I have talked about with a trainer friend of mine. She was my trainer briefly, and then I, started doing spin all the time. And there's two ways to look at it. Like your macros, if you don't know, if you're listening to this or you're watching this and you're like, what the hell is a macro? It's basically looking like breaking down your calories, so you're not just like calorie counting. It's like in grams, your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fats, because your brain and your body need all of those things, especially if you're getting more active, whether you're weightlifting or doing cardio or whatever it is. And you can have a trainer, like Madison said, where that person can help you figure out like what is a good ratio for your body and your goals and stuff, so you're not starving yourself. However, so back to my point is there's two different approaches. There's some that like you eat what did she call it? I want to shout out Leah because she's rad. What did she say? She said, oh, you eat for performance. And that's kind of how I am. Like
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, I need to stay under my calories, but if it fits your macros, like uh Madison's saying, basically like Okay, well, beer is carbs. So I just won't have any carbs today so that I can have like,
Yes.
9 beers tonight. And if you're doing that regularly, that's maybe a sign that's disordered eating. That's maybe not good. Um, and that's different than eating for performance. That's just eating to
Yeah.
meet your macros, which is kind of what I was trying to get at. Like once in a while, fine. You make checks and balances. You know that, okay, I won't eat, junk food today, or I know that I'm going to go out tonight with the girlies and we're going to have a couple of drinks. And so you kind of plan for that. But if you're doing it regularly and skipping your nutrition,
Yeah.
so that was, as you said, that was
Prioritize your nutrition.
a red flag for you
It
where you're
was.
like, huh, did your trainer know?
She would help me track alcohol, but I don't think I was not tracking it to the level that I was indulging in it. Like I would put maybe I had a drink of vodka, but I was binge drinking that night.
Right. Which
So
also, makes you crave fatty foods. So how often do you get drunk? And I mean, at least for me, I know that's yes. And then Taco Bell is never more delicious than late at night after you've been out drinking. You know what I mean? You've been out drinking, you get
yes,
like a Big Mac or whatever. Like, well, there go my macros for today,
1,000%. So I was really finding myself at this point in Florida. I moved here not knowing anybody. I was definitely with the crowd that was going out every weekend, that was, drinking excessively, blacking out, like all these awful behaviors. And I would wake up and just feel like absolute crap the next day. And I felt like I would lose like an entire day being hungover. And this was what upset me the most. Now looking back, I was wasting so much time doing nothing because I was like sick or throwing up or wasn't even well enough to get out of bed. All of this wasted time, it started to like make me think like there's got to be something on the other side of
right?
this.
This can't be
I have to
living,
make a
right?
change.
Like I'm
Yeah.
just here existing.
I'm not work. I was definitely getting by, but I wasn't working towards any major goals. I was just having fun.
So
And
what was the tipping point for you?
the tipping point I would say is around 2022 or so. I was really involved with a group of girls in the area that like partying was the main objective every weekend. And I was, blacking out and having these awful experiences like I mentioned. And at the same time, my grandma is going through this awful experience with cancer. And I'm also trying to fly back and forth to Ohio to try to take care of her. And whether that was like cleaning out her house, cleaning for her, cooking for my grandpa, like helping her at the hospital, going to visit her. Like all of this I was trying to balance so much at once that it was awful. I have a terrible story of even getting into the air, like coming from a trip or sorry, let me start this over. I had this experience of going to the airport at like 4 a.m. to get on my flight to go see my sick, dying grandma. And I am still drunk from the night before, like very drunk. And I'm going through the TSA line, and this is probably my most embarrassing story. I get sick on the TSA agent. Like I fully projectile vomit
Oh
on this
no.
person. I feel awful. They let me on the plane somehow still. I'm mortified,
Right.
but I'm trying to hold it all together because of the circumstances that I'm going through. I'm definitely numbing some really hard emotions that I'm experiencing. I've never experienced death from a family member,
Hmm.
and this is upsetting because it's my like closest, like she basically raised me. It's my closest relationship in my family. So all of that emotion being numbed by drinking and then to show up to the hospital in that fashion was a wake up call for me. And then
Wow.
my grandma passing shortly after was a huge turning point for me. I think as an adult, you only have a few opportunities to really change your character. And one of them is when you experience death really close and personal. And it really makes you consider the fact that life is finite. You have a number of days, and if you're not using them to the best of your ability to be a better person or to give back to society, then you're just not
Right.
contributing.
What's the point?
It's
What's
not
the
a way to
point?
live.
Right. I love
It's
that.
not a way to live. So I really felt like at that time it changed for me of my mortality, and I had a real wake up call about the fact that I need to be living a different way and that I needed to make changes. And this is when I started thinking about this this internet challenge at the time was popular called like 75 hard.
Oh
You
my
may have heard of
God,
it. Yeah.
bro, it's insane. It's just ridiculous. So if you guys don't know, it was this like incredibly intense fitness challenge. I looked at it because I'm stubborn. I'm like, I can do, like 50% of anything is mental. And it was like 2 workouts a day and like read for an
Yes.
hour a day. Like it's very, very intense. Very intense.
I'm
So
trying to find my notes here.
yeah,
It was intense.
75
Yeah, it was like
hard.
workout twice a day,
Let me Google
walk
it
a
while
ton
we're
of
just
steps, like
let me Google the 75 hard while we're here. Cause like,
cold
oh my God,
showers.
technology, what? 75 hard
I did my own
challenge.
version of it. I definitely had technology, but I was
I mean,
reading every day,
fair.
like cold showers, walking a ton, doing 2 workouts a day. I like so into it. This is when I got into spin too, by the way, as a form
Okay,
of
I kind of
cardio.
love that. All right, he's like blah blah blah. He's talking. Over a
So
million
I find
people
this challenge. I'm like, you know what?
just want
One
to
of
see
the
it.
requirements of it is you have to no drugs or alcohol for 75 days.
Ah,
And so I was like, you know what? Why don't I just try it? I'm at this point the most healthy I've been in a long time in terms of physical. I've lost 70 pounds. Like, I might as well try this. So I gave it a shot, and it ended up being great for me. I loved it for a lot of reasons. It gave me a schedule, it gave me something
mm-hmm.
that I could consistently focus on. It gave me a replacement for the alcohol that I was drinking, and something to schedule in terms of a workout class in the morning so I could not feel like crap the next day. I had to show up for myself.
And it sounds like
And
it gave you that external accountability that is so helpful because you have like now it's a rule. It's not the matter of just simply willpower of I'm not going to drink, but if you don't have a reason to not drink, it can become easier to be like, well, but then what if I did? What if I did, Versus,
yeah.
okay, well, I'm doing this thing, so I specifically can't. I'm taking this medicine, so I can't.
Mhm.
I'm doing, whatever, so I can't.
It was amazing for that, and also I'm still working in the sports industry. I'm still hanging out with these people that I had been hanging out with that love the party culture, and to show up in a group setting, people are going to ask me why I'm not drinking now. I've always been the life of the party. I'm always down for a hang like that, and now I'm suddenly not drinking. This was the perfect excuse for me, honestly, to tell people, hey, I can't. I'm doing this challenge. This is what it is. I'm trying to make my life better. I'm trying to be 1% better every day. That was my goal at the time. And it gave people an explanation of why I wasn't the same way I was before, that they could understand and that I wouldn't be pressured to continue that behavior. So it honestly was perfect. I think that's one of the hardest things too for people is when you are with this group of friends or whoever you're around that they're doing the same things you're doing and contributing to this bad behavior. If you can't separate yourself with some kind of excuse, you have to say something to them or end the friendship. This was like my silent, like quiet quitting of the friend group was saying I'm doing this now, and you like please respect that.
Yeah.
And it shut a lot of my friendships at the time too when I
I
started this.
I have been that through that too, and you hear that a lot, unfortunately. Is like your drinking buddies are a lot of fun, but when you choose a different path, how many of them are encouraging you to, no, like, just, have one drink, just do this, just give up on your goals versus
Mhm.
support you, and then who sticks around and who doesn't? And some people do, but a lot of people don't.
You find out who your real friends are
You
when you
do.
start doing things, making changes in your life like that. And I started telling myself, like, I'm empowered, I'm not a victim, like all of the things that happened to me in my life. I think you think when you get older that your problems are just going to go away. But when you get older, you have the same problems you had when you were a kid for the most part. And it's just learning how to
Like,
live with them and to make them your superpowers.
like
So
what do you, give me an example, because I kind of love that.
it's the amount of energy that I had for life. I was putting it into things and people that did not reciprocate it for me.
Mm.
And I had so much creative energy or physical energy that I wanted to like distribute to the world or to the people around me, but it was going to waste. Or I was really like self-critical about myself, a perfectionist in a lot of ways, or always trying to be busy, but going out and drinking is not being busy, unfortunately, but it
It's
is keeping my social calendar full at all times.
right.
So there's so many other things I could be doing with my time
And not
that are
having to spend that
beneficial.
time recovering later too, because they talk about that, like in the, do I have a problem with alcohol or other, drugs or usage or whatever. And like, if you're spending an inordinate amount of time both accessing drinking and recovering from alcohol, that's an indicator. That is, yes,
Yeah,
we need to re-examine our
absolutely.
relationship. So I
But
think we did briefly talk about this, and I was really excited to discuss with you, but you didn't do like an AA program or anything like that, right?
can you repeat that one more time?
Sure,
Sorry.
yes. I'm fidgeting too, so I might have moved away from the mic. Um, you didn't do like an AA program or anything either, right?
No, I actually didn't. And I really attribute meditation and
Ooh.
the physical element to my change. I didn't
I
do a program. I was working with a therapist, but I never really entered anything. I never really got to the point where I thought it was so extreme that I needed to go to an AA meeting. Um, but I started replacing some of my like draining behaviors, like we're talking about, of like recovering or going out with a social calendar that was ridiculous, or scrolling on social media and wasting the day away, with energizing activities like working out, like going to a group fitness class, like meditating, reading, writing, all of these things that gave me actual energy and made me feel like I was like contributing to society and
right, that you
feeling
actually
alive.
enjoyed too,
Yes.
and it's not just like, so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, holy shit, I hate all of those things, so I guess I'm screwed. Like, well, no, like find, what it is that you like to spend your time and attention on. Maybe it's going for long, leisurely walks looking at bugs, me, or, volunteering, or just trying. I'm doing this thing with a friend of mine right now, and it just popped into my head, called Nacho Quest, where you literally just choose random restaurants, you order the nachos, and you sit there and you rate them just based
I
off of
love
a
it.
completely arbitrary scale. And like, so you just find new fun things that are exciting to you. It doesn't have to be exercise. Excuse me. We have a guest with us. If you're watching, you might see a very small kitten appear. So apologies for that interruption. I was being hit.
You're so right though, Jess. It could be anything. It could be creating something that you like. It could be eating, finding your favorite restaurant, being with people that uplift you and give you energy and aren't like, I call them vampires, people that drain my energy. Like finding your group of people that really uplift you. Or even just being outside has like totally changed my perspective of this too. And when I wasn't drinking, it was crazy the level of dopamine I would get and how happy I would feel just going outside when I was sober versus when I didn't care at all when I went outside when I was like in the height of my drinking. Like it really just shifts the scale for you because having a drink is an extreme dopamine hit and it whacks out your scale, man. Like crazy. When these
Yep.
things that we should be enjoying, like seeing new bugs in nature or a butterfly or a bird. Like this stuff is all so cool that we get to experience it, and we take it for granted because we can't even see like what's around us or appreciate like a
Honestly.
nice cup of coffee or anything.
Right. That those little moments that are like, hell yeah. And I was talking about this recently with someone where I don't know if you've seen any of the Studio Ghibli films or if anybody watching knows what I'm talking about, but like, My Neighbor Totoro and stuff like that. And it's just this like beautifully drawn anime, very artistic anime films. And one of the best things about it that it does so well is it takes these very ordinary moments where you're in a bus traveling or you're cooking a meal or you're tidying, and it just makes it look so beautiful. And it's because it really is, when you stop and you think about it and you appreciate it. It's the little tiny things that are their own sort of lantern lights, so to speak. And I think, yeah, when you're inebriated, I know this was definitely the case for me with kratom, hijacking my dopamine and all of that, where you just go numb, and then when you come off it, you're like, oh my god, I was missing out on all of this.
Yeah,
you know
you're so right. I want to talk a little bit about this process of change because it's something that I didn't understand, and I hope through this platform that you have that I can help somebody understand the way that change can happen. It takes a long time. It can take a long time to really understand this model and get to a place where you're really happy with yourself. And I want to like really hit on that and be that for somebody because there's this phase of pre-contemplation of change that you haven't even made a move, but you just think you need to change and you feel like something's wrong. And I was in that phase for a little bit. And it's scary, but that's an opportunity that you should look at with like open eyes if you can really reflect on what can change in your life
like a
if you know
curiosity
something's not feeling right.
like a curiosity, you mean, like, just, I know I need to change, but I don't necessarily know what I need to do, so let me just be open-minded and observe and
Yeah, it's just like what we talked
explore.
about
And
earlier with like changing is hard because when I was overweight, I didn't know where to start until I found somebody that could help guide me. So it feels scary because it's overwhelming and the first step is not small enough for you to take right now. But during this pre-contemplation phase, if you find someone to model what you want your life to look like, or find a resource to help you, you can make the change more realistic for you. And it moves it to this contemplation stage where a lot of people seek therapy at this point in the process of change because it's a mentor, it's someone that can help you through the process. And it's very common, whether that's a professional or if you do it on your own with through meditation and self-reflection and
or
journaling
even,
and reading and all these other.
I was going to say, even self-help books, just finding external resources that
Mm-hmm.
can supply you with guidance and information, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but then picking up a book on the topic, even Googling it and read articles. I mean, something, anything. I think that's excellent. And I know
Yeah.
I did want to touch on something that I think is so lovely about your experience and so important and approachable. Because listen, we love an AA program as, part of recovery, but it's not necessary, in my opinion. So don't come for me, internet. Okay, don't fight me. But my opinion is that there are so many different ways to experience recovery. And I think what you're pointing out right here is so, so, so important, is just to find something and try different things. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
do try a support group and you're like, this is not for me. And it's, a genuine, it's just not the right fit. You're not in the right place. It's just whatever. But try something. There are so many ways to experience recovery because we're all so unique. Every recovery journey is unique. Um, the worst thing you can do is try nothing, you know?
Yeah. And preparation is the next stage. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
where, like Jess is hitting on, collect as much as you can in terms of resources to help you learn and prepare for what the change exactly is that you want to make in your life. And it's not diving in head first. It's thinking of like, hey, I want to become a swimmer, so I need to go get a swimsuit and some goggles, and like, what do I want my life to look like, and what would a person that does that have and do and rely on. So it's
So,
obtaining exactly what you need to get ready to make your change.
so what did that look like for you then? Like, what would you say was your phase of that?
I would say my preparation phase was, I had collected so many self-help books that I was devouring. I'm a big reader, and finding another community to spend my time with. And for me, that was my spin community. And I was doing all my weightlifting at home. So through my weight loss process, it was very independent, but I really wanted to start to find a team activity because I had, played sports my whole life. I work in the sports industry, and that's important to me to have like a community. So I was starting to prepare myself in the way of like modeling of like, what does a person that goes to a spin class look like? And like, what do they look like? And what do they have? And what are they doing on the weekends or anything like that?
I
And
love
then
that.
what kind of, how can I do this? What kind of challenges are out there? Oh, a 75 hard challenge. Like, somebody that's doing that is really healthy and is really organized with their life, and they value routines. So I started like researching things like that. And that was just on social media or following accounts that, posted positive things and uplifting quotes.
And I love that you even said with the 75, did you finish it, by the way? Did you actually get?
I actually did it twice.
Holy shit. What? Can we get a confetti moment? Like, editor, give us confetti. I want fireworks. That's insane, dude. Um, wow. Okay, well, what
So I
I was
did.
gonna say is that I love that you still tweaked it a little bit and you
Yeah.
personalized it. And I think that's fabulous too, because again, to the whole point, your recovery journey and your journey, because that's the secret, right? Like recovery isn't just like only about I no longer do this drug or use this substance
Mm-hmm.
anymore. It's so much bigger than that. It's really just a life change. I mean, you've watched the episodes and,
Mm-hmm.
at least my 1,000 people out there, maybe you guys have seen all of them where, maybe part of your journey is starting a clothing brand, or maybe it's like, getting super focused on just being a mom and being present with your kids. Like whatever that looks like for you, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Finishing a 75 hard challenge twice, like, bro, that's so
It
amazing.
was an it was I am a very routine oriented person, and we can get into that too. But I want to finish out the process of change
Please,
because now,
yes.
like you're saying, just now you're ready to make the change and actually change your life once you've done all these things. And I can't tell you when the right time is for you, but you'll know it once you feel prepared. And people think that that is the last step, and it's not. So I want to really highlight the fact that maintenance, just like with losing weight or finding any any kind of life-changing activity, it doesn't just stop when you make the change. Like, just because I stopped drinking for 75 days doesn't mean that I still don't have like a dependency on alcohol or a problem with binge drinking. Like, the maintenance phase is where it's okay to fail. You may run into something that sets you back, and it's okay. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean you're a failure, because in the maintenance phase, I promise you it's okay to fail and make mistakes, and you're going to learn so much more from that because you're truly forming a new way of being, and it does not look perfect for everybody.
Can
So,
I can I put you on the
yeah.
spot and ask you,
Yeah.
or maybe you were thinking of doing the same thing? Like, okay, so what were your like early fails, even late fails, whatever comes to mind, I guess.
Early I had I've been sober now for 2 years, a little over 2 years. But I think before we talked about this a little bit. I did drink when I went to Europe last summer. And I did like have some wine and enjoy myself. And to some people, that probably is failing in a textbook AA sense, that's failing because you're drinking. And
do you feel
to
like it was a failure?
I don't I to me it felt like I was at the best point in my life of having a normal relationship with alcohol, even though I did drink it there. So that could be seen as failure to some people.
My thought, and this is, I'm so glad you brought this up, because when we briefly touched on this, I think this is also so important to discuss, is um, I think that is just a normal part of recovery. And hey, this is my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but from what I've seen and the experiences with the people that I've talked about, there are people, Chris, our founder, is someone who has discussed that he knows that the way his brain and body work, that one sip, one anything, and that's it, it's all over. And it's just, it's a loss of control. And that's very, very common, but that's not the reality for everyone. And I think, and I have kind of experienced similar where, after my binge drinking my way through 2020 and, some of 2021, I did stop drinking for a while. And then, like a lot of people, I tried, okay, well, can I re-examine my relationship with alcohol? Can I consume this and not lose control? And, um, you know, the answer currently is yes, but it is something that is always in the back of my mind that I do have to be careful about, that I know, like, if I'm really depressed or if there's a death in the family or something like that, I'm very hesitant around that time to drink, just in case, just to be safe. And it's a slippery slope, and it's a slippery slope, a gray area, and any other cliche we want to throw at it.
It is.
Because for some people, that's all it takes for the slip to turn into a slide and we're fully into relapse.
Mm-hmm.
And, it can be easy to listen to something like this and justify, yeah, I've got this. I've been sober for 5 years and I can totally drink. And now they've lost control and they've lost their 5 years of sobriety. And yet there are other people who, just the way that our brains are wired, because it's really a crapshoot as far as how that gets, who gets which parts and stuff, who abstinence is not necessarily the answer. And I just cannot stress enough that it has, in my opinion, nothing to do with one person having more willpower than the other. Trust me, if it were only about willpower, there would be a hell of a lot more sober people out there if it was literally just about that. So, but I'm glad that you mentioned that, because recovery is so nuanced, and there are so many people that I have had the absolute privilege of speaking to so far that have been, I have to be abstinent from the substance. I mean, some of them, like Mary Beth, was like, it was meth. So like, we definitely need to not be doing that at all. That's not something that we can like maybe pick up occasionally. No, we don't do that. But even to her point of, finding the recovery that fits you, that is the main point. It's figuring out not what can I get away with, what can I let slide, but what does a healthy, happy, thriving version of me look like? Does it include, first of all, am I capable of limiting myself? And if so, does it include having a glass of wine in Europe with my family and then leaving that as a singular experience? And I think that's the only person that can really answer that question is yourself. Like,
you're so
ultimately.
Right.
And that's a big piece of recovery too, is just learning what your recovery journey looks like and being just radically honest with yourself and authentic as hell about where you're at in your journey.
You're so right. And the important thing is that you don't give up, and that if you do make a mistake, like, it does feel like I may have, to me, in a way, I may have failed by doing that. But what I was able to learn from that is self-reflection, journaling. How did that make me feel? Why did I feel like I needed to do that? That's a special occasion. If you can reflect on it and be really, really, really self-aware of why, then it's not a failure. You're learning, and you you have to come up with a plan too afterwards. And for me, it was saying I'm a plan oriented person. So like, hey, when I get back, like we're not doing that anymore. Like that's not the normal. That was a one time thing. So if you come up with a plan and have some self compassion towards yourself, I think that's the most important thing you can do. And you know that you're at a good spot in maintenance when the thing that like drinking, when that doesn't feel like the normal spot you want to be in anymore. Like that's it, that's success when it feels unfamiliar or you don't feel good partaking in it.
Right. It's like it's just not even, it's so not a habit that it just feels bizarre. And so, like, to your point, and maybe for you, that was a fail. Maybe that was like an oops. And so you've reflected and you've said, yeah, you know what? Like, why did I need to do that? And so I just, it's not necessary moving forward. That's not part of my life. Fantastic. And now you've learned. And we've talked about that too, like with Leah's story. I want to say, I think we might have actually talked on the Addiction Help podcast when we were doing that for a little bit. And Leah was a drinker and she relapsed a couple of times. And it's just kind of like yoga where, okay, if you're focusing on the breath and you realize your mind is wandering, just go back to the breath. She relapsed a few times. And as soon as she kind of was like, you know what? I've lost control again. Just get right back up and keep going on that path. So like you said, during maintenance, part of it sometimes is like, oops, I tripped, I fell, I fucked up. Okay, well, get back up, keep moving
Don't give
forward.
up.
Do not give up.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, something that helps me like maintain in this space that may be helpful for other people is keeping a really strict routine. And for me, that is waking up early each morning around like 5:30 a.m. or 5 a.m., doing a mindfulness walk. And for me, this sets up my whole day. I promise it can be a game changer. And I'm asking myself on this walk, I'm either listening to the nature around me or listening to an educational podcast or an audiobook, but I'm taking time to ask myself three main questions every day. And sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's whoever I'm walking with. Maybe it's my boyfriend or my family. And it's what's my main priorities for the day. I'm setting up my day. I'm creating a schedule and a plan for my day and for myself of what I need to do. So I'm not losing myself in, hey, I have nothing to do. Like, why not just have a drink or do this instead? I'm creating my priorities list. I'm naming something that I'm deeply grateful for that day. I think gratitude is like immensely important in our journey, and looking around and appreciating things in nature that I used to not even look twice at because I didn't care about them. And even though they're the most like amazing things about life. And then I'm asking like how I want to show up in the world today. And I think about like healthy people around me or inspiring women and men in my field or friends or people like Jess that show up to the spin studio every Monday, even if it's pouring raining or there's a million things she's got on her calendar. Like I think about people in my life and how I can show up for them. And today I wanted to show up as like someone that inspires my community. So like these are things that keep me in line. And if that helps somebody too, I hope they can start asking themselves these questions.
Hell yeah. I honestly, that's like, I have nothing to add. That was like the perfect finisher. I mean, is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we haven't touched on?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that a lot of people make changes, like I said, around when they're close to death or somebody they love dies. And I think that it's because everything we do is for self-preservation, and we're scared of that feeling of what it might be like to die one day. And if we live in denial about that and numb that feeling with substances, it's no way to live. And if you can like make a change today, because if you are 1% better every single day, you're 365% better by the end of the year. And you should feel empowered to and not a victim in those situations. And yeah, I think unfortunately, death is something that wakes us up. And when you're
Yep.
close to it, it's really a powerful time. So if you find yourself in that situation and ready to make a change, I hope you can follow some of the steps that I laid out, and I hope they help you.
Are
But
they, is there an official name for those steps? Or are they
the process of change?
sick?
I heard it on a podcast. I can't take all the credit for it. I really am a big podcast girl. So the Huberman Lab is one of my favorites, and he has a lot of professors and doctors and scientists and people that are way smarter than me. But listening to that type of content every day helps me learn and really, try to be a better person. But
Sick. I will link that
yeah,
below in the
you
description.
should.
That's why I asked, is like, if you were inspired by something, or
Yeah.
using something, I love to extend credit and shout out other rad people.
Yes.
Also, I love trying to shout out my favorite and only podcast that I listen to is it's about the paranormal. It has nothing to do with addiction at all. But somehow I find a way to weasel it in almost every single time. And here I am weaseling it in by talking about how I weasel it in. So check.
I love that.
Well, listen, I think you're rad as fuck, and you're gonna have to bleep that. Sorry, Adam.
Sorry, Adam.
This was so amazing. I feel like I could keep going, but I'm realizing, like, oh no, we're gonna run out of time. So thank you so much for coming to talk to me and sharing what I think is an often overlooked aspect of recovery. Because I think when people hear that word, myself included, and I work in the industry, you think I know better. We think of people who have been in truly dire straits. They've lost everything. They've, had to go to rehab and just lived through very devastating consequences. And there are so many of us in between, in that gray area of substance abuse and, like, okay, it's a dependency, it's maybe an addiction, but it's still a problem and it's still ruining our lives. And we don't consider ourselves necessarily part of recovery, but, like, surprise, bestie, you are, like, it's those of us in the gray, I think, that maybe don't realize, that we also need help and need to get our shit straight, but also B, deserve a pat on the back for, like, man, you did that hard thing. Good for you.
You're so right. And I hope I can inspire people to live and remind them that you can make choices. And even if you are somebody that feels like when you're in a social setting, you have to have a drink in your hand, you can make the conscious decision not to do that. And there's so many positive things that will come if you start making that choice in your life, and I promise you it's going to be hard at first, but it'll start to get easier over time. And there's so many ways to feel normal in social situations and not dependent on that. And I don't think that it should be so normalized. I think I wanted to, sorry, I'm gonna rant real quick, but
Go.
part of my
Yes, I love
job
a rant.
part of my job is being in the sports industry and being in not situations that have free food and drink on a Monday night, and people are just getting blasted at the bar. And being around that is it doesn't bother me anymore, but that was really hard for me to do when I was starting off in my sobriety journey, because it feels like, to be in those social situations, I have to have a drink in my hand. You can get a soda water with a lime, and 90% of people aren't going to ask you about it. And as long as you practice your self-confidence and the type of, like, responses you're going to have if people ask about why you're not drinking, those situations are going to get easier and easier over time. And I think there's a big community, especially of young people, that are curious about sobriety, but feel like it's normalized to drink. And if you are curious about it, just try it out. I would implore you to just give it a shot, to not drink when at a bar or around your friends that are, and see what it feels like.
Like, Daniel Radcliffe is a great example of that, where he did dry January and then he got to the end of it and he was like, why the hell was I drinking? Like, what was I actually getting out of it? And it made him once again re-examine his relationship with alcohol. And he certainly wasn't somebody who had problematic behavior, but but still, it's like you examine this habit that you have, and a lot of us will realize like, hey man, maybe I'm not being arrested or hitting rock bottom necessarily, but I still want to make a change. And like, recovery is your journey also. It counts for you too. So
can I leave you with everyone in the audience with one final quote that is, it's in my room and it's in my bathroom on my wall, and I look at it every day, and it's a good reminder because I think you can learn so much from failure, like we've talked about in this conversation. And I truly believe that failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, but this time with more intelligence. So if you can do the reflection, you can start over and really change your life for the better. I promise that it's worth it.
I love
learn from those moments.
I love that so much. Thank you. You were just the best. And we didn't talk about spin nearly as much as I wanted to, but that's all right. I'll just suffer. It's fine.
I love it so much. I started working there. So
literally,
you should know that I love it.
I hated it. So here I am. I'm like wiggling it in. I hated it the first time I went, and I was only there because Carissa was like, will you please go with me? Like, I'm nervous to go by myself. And I'm like, absolutely. Of course. Fuck. I'm like, this is horrible. And I was on bike 18, which is in the front, and it was Grace's class. And it was during the warm up, I sat down and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, this is, what do you mean there's also weights halfway through this or whatever? Like, this is a nightmare. And I genuinely questioned, like, what would happen if I threw up or passed out? Like, multiple times this ran through my mind. I had absolutely no endurance. Like, I had not been running in 10 years, no amount of exercise whatsoever. And I was doing some yoga, big deal. And it was really slow yoga. And then we get out of class and I'm like, cool, I'm never doing that again. And then we're in the car and I'm driving home, and I texted Carissa like, girl, oh no, I think I might have actually really liked that. It's the endorphins start hitting you.
The endorphins hit like crazy.
So
it reminds yourself you can do hard things. And
that's, yes.
I totally agree that the warm-up song is always the hardest.
It's disgusting. And listen, I, with no experience whatsoever, no sports background, I have asthma, I have arthritic knees. If I can do it, you can do something scary and hard, and don't be afraid to be bad at it when you start. Like you said, don't be afraid to fail, and every failure is a lesson. Well, listen, every time I got on that bike and, would only be out of the seat or out of the saddle for 15 seconds, that was 15 more seconds than I did, yesterday, or not at all. And now I'm to the point where I'm getting close to 200 rides. Like, what is that? Who is this person? So yes, that is something they say in class all the time. You can do hard things. Do hard things. We talked earlier about how to approach change. Now I'm just babbling because I like you and this is fun. So let me wrap this up. Thank you all for watching and or listening, depending on what platform this is on, because I always forget that not everyone can see what we're doing. So you're missing out on my really rad pajamas. Yes, I wore pajamas to the podcast. So this is Lights of Recovery. My name is Jess. Give me a like or a follow. Does anyone still say that now? I don't know. I don't watch podcasts, so I have no idea. I don't know. I'm so bad at this. I'm terrible at this.
You're great at it.
Thank you for watching, everybody. I love you all. And go try a spin class.
Thank you so much for having me too, Jess. I really appreciate the time and the platform that you provided here. This is an awesome community, and I'm very privileged to be your 10th guest. Thank you.
No, you.